Hey everybody, Cinema Sickness here with this week's Weekly Watch, where we take a look at all the titles I watched throughout the week, and I briefly discuss them. So let's take a look at everything I checked out. The first title I checked out this week is one I've been meaning to get around to watching for a little bit now, and that was Puss in Boots. Definitely wanted to check this movie out ever since it was in theaters. I was a big fan of the Shrek series. Yeah, they got progressively worse, but still, I was a big fan of the series. I do love DreamWorks CGI animated films. So again, this was definitely one I wanted to see. And I thought it was pretty decent. Nothing special. I wouldn't say this is one you need to see right away. If you're like me and you haven't got around to seeing it yet, you can wait. If this is not, in your queue to watch right away, you can give it some time. It wasn't the best. I would say it's about as good as some of the later Shrek films. I mean, maybe as good as Shrek 3 or 4. It's around there. So a good movie, very funny. Had some cute moments, pretty good CGI animated film, but all in all, is it the best one I've seen? No, certainly not. Kind of goes just into the mediocre sort of range of CGI animated films, but nevertheless, it still was good. One I'd recommend checking out. If you like the Shrek films, if you like DreamWorks CGI animated movies, then this is one you gotta see. Then the next title I watched is one I've been dying to see. I've wanted to watch this ever since I picked it up in October at a local consignment shop, though. It was October, so I couldn't watch it. Had to wait until the end of Halloween Horrorthon. So, of course, this week, I definitely checked this out. And that was the Disney Insider Yearbook 2005 Year in Review. Now, yes, this is a book. However, this does come with a DVD, and that's what I watched. And I was disappointed. The DVD basically just said, hey, here's what's in the book. Had a few other little special features on it as well, but they were mostly just clips of things. Nothing all that spectacular. I was really hoping the disc would basically be a disc format of this book. I was really hoping they would just basically say everything that was in this book and you didn't have to actually read through this. Not that I'm not going to read through this, but it would have been really cool to sit down, pop the disc in, and be able to basically see the book. That would have been awesome, because after I read this for the first time, am I going to want to read it again and again and again? Probably not. When it comes to books and me, if I read a book, I'll probably read it once, and I'll probably never read it again, as opposed to a DVD or Blu-ray or whatever. I'll watch those 1,000 times. So I was really hoping the DVD on this would have been basically the book in disc format. But unfortunately, that's not what we got. It was basically just people... it was one guy interviewing the two guys who basically put this book together, and that was it. They were just saying, here's what's inside the book, here's why we made the book, yada, yada, yada. Now please read it. That's basically it. I did feel really bad, though, for the two guys who put this book together, because this was the first time Disney did a Insider Yearbook. It was 2005 was the first one ever done, and it was the only one ever done. And the entire time they're talking about how excited they are for this new project. They were so excited for this book, and they can't wait to do one every single year. Again, this is the last one of these, the first and last one, which I don't really understand. I think this is a really cool idea. Even if these didn't come with DVDs, I'd still probably pick these up because these are awesome. I would love to know that everything Disney's doing every year. And this talks about everything from stuff within the company to the parks to movies, games, music, TV, everything. I mean, this is Disney in 2005, inside and out. Every little thing that happened in 2005 that had to do with the Walt Disney Company. I think that's really, really cool. And I guess maybe the book just didn't sell very well. I'm not sure why. I know there are a lot of Disney nuts out there, and I really think a book like this would have sold pretty well. So I got to imagine something went wrong. Maybe the marketing for this was bad or something. I don't know. But I can't believe this book didn't sell well. I really think it would have, just due to the fact that, due to the Disney fans out there. Maybe it was just priced too high. That could have been another thing. They could have priced this at like $50 or something like that. And then yeah, you're not going to sell that many. But it's a shame, because this looks like a pretty cool book. I've only fanned through it thus far. Haven't read everything yet. I've only read a few pages here and there, but it looks really cool. And from what the disc said, it definitely looks to be a good book. So I'm definitely going to check this out. But like I said, unfortunately, the disc didn't really have much to offer. It's basically just interviews with the two guys that put it together, saying why they put it together, how they put it together, and then they want you to read the book. So unfortunately, that's all that's on the disc. Then it was Veterans Day, and of course, like every year on Veterans Day, I always have to watch some sort of war-related film, and this year I finally checked out The Deer Hunter. I say finally because this was my first time ever watching this movie. But before you question why I've never gotten around to watching Deer Hunter, the reason for that being is because I had a really, really hard time finding this movie for the longest time. I never came across a copy of it for a good price. or that wasn't scratched to hell. I just could not find a good copy of this that I was willing to pick up. But over, I guess it was the last year, I picked this up on HD DVD, got it on DVD, got it on Laserdisc. So I picked it up on a few, I think I may even have it on CED. So I picked this up on a few formats over the last year. So I got plenty of formats now to watch this on. And I knew that this year would be the year I finally checked this out. And it was great. Though I gotta say, does it quite live up to the hype it gets? Maybe not. But that could be my own fault, because for all those years I was trying to hunt down a good copy of this, I let all that hype get to me. I kept hearing it's so good, it's so good, it's so good, you have to see this. I think I really built it up pretty high. And then when I watched it, I went, well, that was good. It was a great film. Definitely recommend checking this out. But I think I just built it up so high that it didn't quite live up to my expectations that I gave it. Of course, that's not to say this film's not good. It is. It's brilliant. Great Vietnam era film. And from what I've read, I think it was, did I read on the back here? I'm not sure. I think this was like the first movie to really depict like the Vietnam War. I think that's pretty cool. So this was, again, a great story. It's all about these, that's one thing I got to say. It's all about a bunch of like people, like a small Pennsylvania town that go off to the Vietnam War. And it's about the people in the town, the people who, went off to the war and all the craziness that happened there, then them coming back home and some not coming back home. It's pretty intense. But one of the things I found funny is when they're driving around Pennsylvania, I looked it up on Wikipedia, and it said where the shooting locations for this film was. And the shooting locations were actually all over the United States. It was kind of weird how many different locations they shot in. But of course, the scenes where they're driving through the mountains and everything like that, it was shot in Washington, which immediately. If I'm from Pennsylvania, that's where I live. I'm sitting in Pennsylvania right now. So being from Pennsylvania, do we have mountains in Pennsylvania? Yes, the Appalachian Mountains run through Pennsylvania, but they're a small mountain range, not very big. Whereas the mountains they're driving through as like big snow-capped mountains, glaciers running through it. I'm like, no, not here in Pennsylvania. So it's very funny to watch them, drive through the wilderness of Pennsylvania. It's totally taking place in Washington State. We don't have mountains quite like that here in Pennsylvania. But anyway, that was just something I wanted to point out. But The Deer Hunter, it was a good movie. I would recommend checking it out. Like I said, did it live up to the hype I gave it? No, but that was my own fault. I can't say the movie's, doesn't live up to the hype necessarily. I just built it up a bit too high. So a great film. If you like war movies, this is definitely one to check out, because it's a war movie, but it's one of those like dramatic sort of war movies where only a little bit of it actually takes place during a war. The rest of it is just about these people's lives and how they were affected by this war. And it's a great story, just about a fantastic small town and the people in it, and I would definitely recommend checking it out. Next, I checked out Lincoln, or as it should have been called, the 13th Amendment. And I say that because that's what this film is all about. It's about Abraham Lincoln trying to pass the 13th Amendment. I went into this expecting a movie about his life, from his birth to his death, and instead, we just got a film that really focuses on the last few months of his life, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. I just thought the name was a little misleading. Like I said, I went into it expecting the life of Lincoln, and instead I just got him trying to pass the 13th Amendment, which proved to be really interesting. It was a great watch. Again, how much of it's true, how much of it's been embellished, how much, you never quite know when it comes to, a somewhat biographical film. You never really know how much of it's been embellished, but regardless, it's still a great watch, and I definitely enjoyed it. And if I can believe what I saw in here, I certainly learned some interesting things. So again, a great watch. I would recommend checking this one out. Though I gotta say, a lot of people said this movie bored them and it was really slow. It's a slower paced film, but I wasn't bored by it. I was really interested in it. I guess I would say if you're a history buff, if you like learning about historical things, and you like history, this is one to check out. If you just want some like action movie or something like that, if you're an action junkie, then no, you're not gonna like this film. My aunt said it bored her. My grandmother said it bored her. Some people, when I mentioned I was watching this, said it was a snooze fest. I'd have to disagree. I thought it was a very well done film, very enjoyable, and again, very interesting, and I learned a lot by watching this, again, if I can take what I saw as the truth. So I would recommend checking out Lincoln, but don't be like me. Don't go into it thinking a movie called Lincoln is going to be about Lincoln's life. No, it's really only about the last few months of his life where he tried to get the 13th Amendment passed. Obviously, we all know he did. So I would recommend checking it out. It was a good watch. I didn't think it was a snooze fest. I really enjoyed it. Then I checked out another biographical film with the Josephine Baker story. This was a great watch. Josephine Baker is somebody who I knew about. I knew like the brief kind of history of her life, but I didn't really know all that much about her. I only looked up a little bit about her because, like I said, I picked this up the day after I actually looked up information on her because they were talking about it on the radio. Kind of odd how it happened. But when I heard him talking about her on the radio, I looked up some information on her, kind of read just a very brief synopsis of her life. But what I read really didn't go into much detail, whereas after I watched this, I actually looked up more detail on her. And in looking up more detail on her, I was kind of disappointed in the film almost because I felt they left a lot of stuff out, a lot of actually things that I would say are important they left out, and they definitely changed some things as well. There were certain things in here that apparently were changed around. Again, this is just what I read offline. I read some biographies on her, and they could be wrong as well. I don't know. This could be right. They could be wrong. Vice versa. I don't know. But certain things about like her house, how they in the movie they basically show like her house being like repossessed. They kick her out. They just take everything from her. Whereas apparently she actually sold her house. She did lose all her money and couldn't afford to keep the house anymore. But apparently they didn't repossess it. They didn't just take it back. She actually sold it. So little things like that where, I was like, why did they change that in the movie? Why didn't they show her having to sell her house? I mean, both those are pretty dramatic. I mean, yeah, getting your house repossessed and taken away from you sucks, but also having to sell your house off because you can't afford to keep it anymore, that also sucks as well. Other things about like when she was a young girl, she was working for a lady, like washing her clothes, and apparently she didn't do it right, and the lady like burned her hands to punish her. That wasn't in here. Like, why wouldn't you show things like that? That seems like a pretty interesting story. I mean, that's pretty harsh. Burning somebody's hands because they didn't do your wash correctly. That's something that should have been in this movie. So it's just little things like that they left out or things they changed that kind of bugged me. But from what I read in the biographies I read on her, it seems they did do a pretty good job sticking to her true life. I'd say about 90% of this is all pretty much sticking to her life. And it's very interesting. I would definitely recommend checking this one out. It was a fun watch, and I learned a lot about Josephine Baker that I didn't know beforehand. So a great biographical film. I would definitely recommend checking out the Josephine Baker story. And finally, the last title I checked out this week was Ghost Ship, here in this triple feature set I have. Now, Ghost Ship was enjoyable, but there was something that really surprised me about this film, and it wasn't the actual film itself. It was about you guys, and how many of you apparently absolutely love this film. I was really surprised by that, because after I watched it, I went, that was enjoyable, but just sort of mediocre. I didn't think it was anything great. I just thought it was just all right. Whereas when I mentioned on Instagram and Facebook that I was watching this, I got a lot of comments from you guys saying how much you love the film. People that don't even watch my videos, people that I'm just like friends with from high school and stuff like that, also were commenting about how they love this movie. And I was really surprised by all the positive comments I was getting about Ghost Ship. Again, not that it was a bad movie, but I just thought it was very mediocre. It was just kind of one of those movies where you see it, and now do you really need to see it again? No, that's what I thought. The same thing happens with, and this is by the same guy, I don't know. Yeah, it says, Steve Beck, who also directed 13 Ghosts, the remake of 13 Ghosts. I find that amusing too, because a lot of people seem to really like 13 Ghosts, the remake, which, I mean, I love the original William Castle film. That's brilliant, but the remake, I thought was just okay. It had some creepy moments. It was an alright story. It was enjoyable, but I just think it's okay, whereas a lot of people out there seem to really like that film. So I guess Steve Beck must do it for some people. Some people must really like his films because, again, Ghost Ship got really good reviews from you guys, and I know a lot of people seem to really like 13 Ghosts as well, which I personally think both of them are mediocre. I think they're enjoyable, they're fun. I'd recommend checking them out, but just as far as horror movies go, just somewhat mediocre. That's my feeling on Ghost Ship. It's worth a watch, but at the same time, just mediocre, nothing special. It had some creepy moments, it had a good story, though it did get kind of cheesy towards the end, I felt. There were some things I would have liked to have maybe seen change. I mean, all those spirits going around the ship and stuff, that just seemed cheesy. There were definitely some cheeseball moments in this film. But all in all, it was at least a decent watch. Again, I would recommend checking it out. If you're interested in seeing it, it is certainly worth a watch. But all in all, I'd say mediocre. So there you go, guys. That's everything I checked out this week. Definitely watched a lot of great titles. I'm very happy about everything I checked out. So, like I always say, if you like this video, please give me a like. If you're not already subbed, please do. So that is it. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for my next video. See ya.